A Mochi moment from Mark, who writes, I just want to thank you for making GLP-1s affordable. What would have been over $1,000 a month is just $99 a month with Mochi. Money shouldn't be a barrier to healthy weight. 3 months in, and I have smaller jeans and a bigger wallet. You're the best. Thanks, Mark. I'm Myra Ahmed, founder of Mochi Health. To find your Mochi moment, visit joinmochi.com.
Mark is a Mochi member compensated for his story.
You're listening to this podcast, so I know you've got a curious mind. Here's a helpful fact you may not know yet. Drivers who switch and save with Progressive save over $900 on average. Pop over to progressive.com, answer some questions, and you'll get a quick quote with discounts that are easy to come by. In fact, 99% of their auto customers earn at least one discount. Visit progressive.com and see if you can enjoy a little cash back. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. National average 12-month savings of $946 by new customers surveyed who saved with Progressive between June 2024 and May 2025. Potential savings will vary.
Voices for Justice is a podcast that uses adult language and discusses sensitive and potentially triggering topics, including violence, abuse, and murder. This podcast may not be appropriate for younger audiences. All parties are innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. Some names have been changed or omitted per their request or for safety purposes. Listener discretion is advised. My name is Sarah Turney, and this is Voices for Justice. Last time on Voices for Justice, we discussed the ongoing investigation into Alissa's disappearance after my father's 2008 arrest. We went over my brother Rhett's second and third interviews, the search of my father's truck, and ended on my fear that the Thomas Hymer confession could be true. In this episode, we are diving deep into that confession and the investigation surrounding it. And we are also looking at some of the circumstances that eventually made me have a change of heart about supporting my father. Thomas Hymer is currently serving a life sentence in a Tennessee prison for the 2001 death of a woman named Sandra Lee Goodman. Sandra's body was found by a housekeeper under the bed of a beachfront motel in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. She had been strangled and stabbed in the neck. Hymer was later apprehended while driving her car. The last time we discussed Thomas Hymer was quite a few episodes ago, and that's because his confession just kind of sat with the FBI until Detectives Summershoe and Anderson decided to dig deep into it again after my father's 2008 arrest. But as a quick refresher, Thomas Hymer confessed to killing Alissa and 21 others, including J.C. Lee Dugard, who was later found alive. These confessions came after Hymer wrote a letter to Detective Curcio of the Fort Lauderdale Police Department proclaiming that he was a serial killer and that he was going to make Detective Curcio famous. As far as his confession to killing Alissa goes, he stated that he met Alissa in the parking lot of a Phoenix bar in 2001. Some reports state that it was May, the same month Alissa went missing, and others say it was October. But Hymer claims that he took her to Georgia before killing her in a motel room and disposing of her body in an industrial area. The FBI interviewed Hymer and concluded that he was quite knowledgeable about specifics regarding Alissa. And these specifics are not something I can ignore. Keep in mind that at the time Hymer provided investigators with these specific details, Alissa's case was virtually unknown. There were no television shows, podcasts, or videos about Alissa like there are now. From what we know, it appears that Hymer was essentially working off a very small newspaper clipping that contained an aged, progressed photo of Alissa's face, and basic details such as her hair and eye color and weight and height. When he was interviewed by the FBI, Hymer was presented with a photo lineup of different girls, and he was able to identify Alissa. No big deal, right? He could have gotten lucky, or really just studied that photo well before going into the interview. But he was also presented with a photo lineup of different pairs of shoes, to which he was able to correctly identify not just the style of shoe as being a skater-type style, but he was also able to identify the exact brand of shoes that my family and I told the police Alissa could have been wearing on the day that she disappeared. And according to the report, he, quote, did identify them and did not hesitate to point them out, end quote. Hymer also confirmed that Alissa had more than one piercing and no tattoos, all of which is correct. In addition to being able to correctly identify Alyssa's picture, shoes, and physical features, Hymer also offered a slew of different witnesses that he said would be able to confirm his story, even stating that he had given some of Alyssa's jewelry to multiple women after he killed her. And like I mentioned at the end of the last episode, this terrified me. And it made me wonder if this man really did kill Alissa. Before reading these reports for myself, I knew almost nothing of this confession, other than the police deemed it to be false. But after everything that I've experienced with the police, I didn't want to just take them at their word and gloss over this topic. There are not many persons of interest in this case so far, so I feel an obligation to Alissa to investigate each one to the best of my ability, despite whoever I may personally feel is responsible for her disappearance. But Detective Summershoe was told by the FBI that the confession was ultimately deemed false. The report reads, quote, Agent Jacob said that the fact that Hymer claimed to have picked up Alissa in Phoenix when her father received a call from her in California troubled her and made her discount Hymer's account. She did say that Hymer had very detailed information and was certainly capable of such a crime given his prior history, end quote. So at this point, we have a man who is a convicted murderer who wrote a letter to a detective stating that he was going to make him famous because he was a serial killer and wanted to confess to all of his murders. We know that he didn't kill at least one of the people he confessed to killing because J.C. Lee Dugard is alive and well, thank goodness. But we also know that he actually did kill Sandra Lee Goodman. And he either knew or guessed some pretty specific information about Alissa. However, this appears to have been disregarded based on the assumption that the call from California a week after Alissa was gone was really made by her, to which we have no evidence of that being the case, other than my father's account and a phone record that does not tell us who actually made the call. So, Detectives Summershoe and Anderson decide to look further into this confession despite being told by the FBI that it was probably false. In February of 2009, Detective Anderson wrote Thomas Hymer a letter in prison. He asks Hymer to describe how he met Alissa and describe her murder in detail, and Hymer responds. He reiterates that he did in fact kill Alissa, and states that he, quote, tried to give closure to this since 2006. And he goes on to explain, I want absolutely nothing from you or anyone else except complete and final closure. That way, I can let go. End quote. And from what I can gather, the only thing Hymer asked authorities for was a stamped envelope with their return address to continue the correspondence. He again tells the story that he met Alissa in the parking lot of a bar when he found her in a van strung out on heroin. The police report describing this letter from Hymer reads, Hymer began his narrative by saying that he traveled to Arizona with a girl from Michigan. Quote, once she was dead and buried, I headed to Phoenix. End quote. Hymer says only that he was kind of bar hopping, and that he wanted to visit bars that he had heard of in Avondale, Phoenix, and Scottsdale. No names of the bars or locations are provided. Hymer next mentions, quote, one night I was at a bar, and I figured out who one of the coke dealers were, end quote. Hymer says that he was himself low on dope and cash, so he decided to, quote, roll the guy, end quote. Hymer fails to describe the individual as anything other than a, quote, wannabe biker, end quote, with a tan van. In relation to the robbery, Hymer's letter says only that he came up to the man from behind and, quote, dropped him, end quote. Hymer then removed cash and, quote, a little powder, end quote, from the person of the biker. Hymer then went to the biker's van looking for his stash. Hymer then relates, quote, well, I found his stash all right, plus a girl who was seriously fucked up. This was Alissa, end quote. Hymer says that Alissa, quote, was so gone on heroin that she barely noticed me, end quote. Hymer continues saying that something about the situation made him decide to take Alissa with him. He says he mixed a speedball of coke and meth and gave it to Alissa to get her out of the heroin rut. Hymer mentions that, quote, it took a while, but it eventually worked, even though she had the shakes like a real bitch, end quote. No further detail as to the symptoms were provided. Hymer does not address what happened to the biker during the search of the van. Hymer does not speak of any issues with the open bar and any patrons coming in or out. Neither did Hymer address how the van was identified. Hymer said that he and Alissa stayed at a Comfort Inn motel, but, quote, I can't swear to it, end quote. Hymer gave the estimate of this occurring late in the month around his mother's birthday, which is on the 30th of May. Hymer said the only thing Alissa spoke of was how the biker, quote, kept sticking her with the needle every time she woke up. Hymer continued, she kept telling me how she needed me, and we needed each other, end quote. Hymer then recalls that after a while he decided to go back to Georgia. The next portion of this report speaks to Alissa's sexual tendencies according to Hymer, and a lot of it is omitted. But there is a quote that isn't redacted. Hymer said of Alissa, quote, she proved herself in bed, and she proved I could trust her, end quote. He also says that he found himself the one that he wants to keep. Hymer said Alissa would not talk about her past, other than saying she could not and would not go back. Hymer mentioned that Alissa cried in her sleep, and that he felt, quote, I should have cut the biker's throat. Whatever he did to her when he snatched her really left its mark on her, end quote. Hymer did not mention any of the travel through other states, or where the couple ate or slept. He jumped right to Georgia, saying that he took Alissa to his mother's home. While at the home, Hymer introduced Alissa to his younger brother, Josh. Hymer noted that Josh seemed to like her. Hymer next visited a friend named Jonathan. Hymer said he went to get some coke, and while they were there, he and Alissa had a little fun in a bedroom belonging to Jonathan's son. Hymer says that he and Alissa left Jonathan's home and checked into a Days Inn motel. He mentions that his former girlfriend / mother of his child has a father who works as a maintenance man at this location. The father is believed to have seen Hymer with Alissa at the motel. The next portion of this report goes into the specifics of the murder of Alissa. And just like the part including sexual activity, a lot of it is redacted. But I'll read for you the parts that are not. Hymer stated that the couple, he and Alissa, did lines of cocaine while at the motel. Hymer then asked for sex, but Alissa complained that all of her cuts were sore. And then the next part is redacted for maybe 4 or 5 lines of the report. But it picks back up saying, I tightened the belt so it would choke her. She really started bucking around. About the time she collapsed, I came. Hymer stated that he placed Alissa's lifeless body in the bathtub and bled her, then cut her into pieces using a PVC saw. He stated that the body was cut into 6 different parts and then bagged. Hymer described driving the back roads to Forsyth, stopping at a dump road to add trash, oil, fish, leaves, etc. to the bags. Hymer says he went to the Forsyth Recycling Center on Juliet Road to dump the body in the compactor. Hymer mentions that the, quote, old man, end quote, who runs the center helped him unload all the bags. Hymer states he then returned to the motel and got cleaned up. He says he called the mother of his child who came and stayed with him at the motel. Again, no times or dates are mentioned. Hymer mentions that Alissa was wearing a ring and a necklace, both of which he took from her body and gave to female friends. No dates were provided. The women are mentioned by name and city, but no birth dates or addresses are provided. Hymer said he had come forward with his confession about the murders, providing Alissa's name and the location approximately 3 or 4 months before he saw her name and picture in the missing person section of the USA Today paper. Hymer stated that Alissa had, quote, a bad habit that I couldn't stand. She would never wear socks with her shoes unless I made her, end quote. Hymer also said Alissa complained when he popped his knuckles. Hymer closed the letter by providing a brief physical description of Alissa, saying, quote, her hair was brown, but had been whacked off at her shoulders. She was average height with brown eyes. She told me she was 17. She was in decent shape, but had a little baby fat. The needle tracks on her arms were new and fresh, so they probably came from the biker, end quote. Hymer also mentioned that Alissa was wearing white lace-up Keds shoes with no socks. The shoes had little blue squares on the back of them. All the other clothing she had on was thrown out. And that's the end of the report.
This episode of Voices for Justice is sponsored by Chewy. If you have pets, you probably know about Chewy, and you also know that when they say that they have everything you need to keep your pet happy and healthy, they're not messing around. To keep them happy, Chewy has over 100,000 products from all the brands my pets love at prices I love. To keep them healthy, Chewy offers pet prescriptions, pet insurance, telehealth vet visits, and they're even rolling out vet clinics across the country. I've been shopping with them for a very long time. And in addition to the auto-ship feature that gets the dog's food to them every single month, I also love to experiment with different treats. But I'm a bit picky. For me, it has to be high quality with simple ingredients. I recently picked up treats from Shepherd Boy Farms that are 100% just chicken breast. Popcorn and Heber are already obsessed. Chewy has everything you need to keep your pet happy and healthy. And right now, you can save $20 on your first order and get free shipping by going to chewpanions.chewy.com/Sarah E. Turney. That's chewpanions.chewy.com/Sarah E. Turney to save $20 on your first order with free shipping. chewpanions.chewy.com/Sarah E. Turney. Minimum purchase required. New customers only. Terms and conditions apply. See site for complete details. This episode of Voices for Justice is brought to you by Quince. I've been trying to be more intentional about what I wear each day. I'm leaning into pieces that feel effortless, comfortable, and still put together, and Quince has been my go-to. The fabrics feel elevated, the fits are flattering, and everything just works without overthinking it. They use premium materials like 100% European linen, organic cotton, and ultra-soft denim. And the best part? Everything is priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands. They work directly with ethical factories and cut out the middlemen, so you're paying for quality and craftsmanship, not brand markup. I recently just ordered their tiered linen dress, of course in black. I wanted to pair it with one of my favorite pairs of brown wedges. The problem was, I didn't have a brown purse. So I got that from Quince too. It's one of my favorite outfits. It's easy, effortless, and feels amazing, especially as we're getting a little bit warmer here in Phoenix. Refresh your everyday with luxury you'll actually use. Head to quince.com/justice for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. Now available in Canada too. That's QUINCE.com/justice for free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/justice.
After reading this report, I saw some discrepancies. Of course, Alissa wasn't known to do heroin. No one that I've spoken to has stated that she even tried it. But could she have been taken by some biker that shot her up with it? It's possible. The next thing that stood out to me was the knuckle popping and how it supposedly irritated her. I don't remember her being annoyed by knuckle popping. And in fact, I'm pretty sure that she's the one that taught me how to pop my knuckles. And I can certainly confirm that she popped her own all the time. Last is the description of the shoes. Unlike what the FBI told the Phoenix Police Department, Hymer claims that Alissa was wearing lace-up Keds, and it was the only piece of clothing retained after throwing the rest out. I can say with 100% certainty that Alissa did not own Keds or anything that looked like Keds. The only shoes Alissa wore around 2001 were skater-style men's shoes or sandals. To follow up on this letter, Detective Anderson arranged to speak with Thomas Hymer on the phone. This tactic of repeating the same questions and asking for the same story more than once is common in law enforcement. I experienced this personally in my own interview with Detective Summershoe and Anderson. They want to see if your story changes. So I'm going to read the report outlining this phone call with Hymer and let you be the judge as to whether or not his story changes in a detrimental way. The report about the phone call begins by introducing the letter that Detective Anderson had written to Thomas Hymer. It also explains that Thomas Hymer was given all of his Miranda rights, had to sign a card, and send it back to Detective Anderson before they spoke on the phone. The phone call begins with Thomas Hymer asking Detective Anderson what took so long. He then stated that he had made this confession back in 2006. Detective Anderson then asks Hymer to clarify how many murders he was confessing to. Hymer claims it was 12 or 13 murders in total in 6 different states across the country. They then go into the background about how Thomas Hymer was interviewed and by whom. The report reads, I also asked Hymer if he had been interviewed by Florida detectives and the FBI in relation to these confessions. Hymer said that he had been interviewed, and then added that he had last spoken to the FBI agents nearly 10 months earlier. Hymer would later explain that he had been transferred to another prison in southern Florida approximately 10 months ago, and had just returned to his current location. The FBI interviews had ended when he briefly left his current facility. I had no information as to where the federal investigation stood or when it would resume. Hymer understood that the manner in which he had offered his confession had complicated the law enforcement response. This was not a simple confession to one solitary crime, but rather a lengthy yet vague narrative involving numerous jurisdictions. Detective Anderson then asks Hymer to describe Alissa and the first time that he met Alissa. The report reads, Hymer began by describing traveling through Arizona and visiting what he described as a biker bar. Hymer said that he noticed a biker-type guy in the bar and ended up, quote, rolling him for dope, end quote. Hymer said he himself was coming down from cocaine and methamphetamine use and was experiencing DTs. Hymer was unable to name the bar or provide a location. He could not position the bar in any particular part of the city or even name one of the crossroads where it was situated. Hymer continued saying that the biker, whom he did not name, had a stash of drugs in the van parked in the parking lot outside of the bar. Hymer estimated that he took $3,500 to $4,000 in cash, and, quote, 2, 3, or 4 baggies of coke and some meth, end quote. Hymer added that there was a considerable amount of heroin inside of the van along with needles. He then volunteered that he did not do heroin and he was not a dealer. The heroin was left in the van. Hymer described the biker guy as a white male in his late 30s to 40s, approximately 6 foot tall and between 230 and 240 pounds. He said that he had followed the biker out of the bar and had struck him from behind, knocking the man unconscious with a single punch. When questioned, Hymer recalled carrying a particular knife that had a hilt with finger holes that served as brass knuckles. The single punch struck the man in the base of the neck. Hymer volunteered that he was known to always carry 4 or 5 knives at all times. Hymer went on with his narration, describing how he moved the unconscious man to the subject's van and then used his keys to unlock the vehicle. Hymer estimated this attack occurred sometime after 10 or 12 at night. The biker was left lying next to the van for the duration of the event. Hymer next described the van, calling it old and worn out, an American-made vehicle, but unknown make and model. The van was tan in color and had 2 sets of folding doors. 1 set of doors on the driver's side and 1 set on the rear of the van. The doors opened outward in both locations. Hymer was sure to say that the van did not have the type of doors that slide. He then described the interior of the van as smelling of beer and vomit. The van only had 2 front captain's chairs and no seats in the back. The van was filled with trash and clothing. Alissa was inside the rear of the van, vomiting. Hymer said he used the biker's key to unlock the van and search for the dope. Hymer found the drugs, including the heroin, in a small pack hidden between the front seats. Hymer gave very good detail about finding the drugs. Hymer then noticed Alissa in the rear of the van. Hymer described Alissa as, quote, totally whacked, end quote. He said that he could see several fresh injection points, with a bruise up high on the bicep of her right arm. Hymer said the biker must have been, quote, tying her off, end quote, and injecting her with heroin. Hymer said taking Alissa with him, quote, seemed like the right thing to do, end quote. Hymer then described how he mixed an 8-ball mixture of methamphetamine and cocaine and forced it down Alissa's throat. The drug had the effect of waking Alissa up, and again causing her to vomit. Hymer explained that the drug was necessary to wake Alissa up and get her to his vehicle. I pressed Hymer for a physical description of Alissa and her clothing. Hymer said Alissa was filthy, having vomited on her clothing. He described the girl as wearing a white or tan blouse with short sleeves. Alissa wore tight jeans and white keds without socks. Hymer added that he does not like women to go without socks, so he noticed the offense immediately. He continued by describing Alissa as having shoulder-length brown hair with streaks that were blondish. He added that once cleaned up, the blonde hair was no longer visible. Alissa was described as having a decent shape and a little bit of body fat. Hymer estimated that Alissa was 5'6" or 5'7", and young. He commented that he had carried her to the car, providing the estimate weight at the time to be 120 pounds. Hymer mentioned that Alissa wouldn't talk at first. He states that he and Alissa left the unnamed bar and began driving around Phoenix. Hymer repeatedly mentions Phoenix, but again was unable to provide a street or landmark. Hymer said that he traveled out of town, back the way he came into the state. He mentioned that he was heading as if he were heading back toward Michigan, which is where he had come from most recently. Hymer made no mention of traveling to visit his uncle in Nevada. Hymer went on and volunteered that he may confuse things about Alissa and about Phoenix, Arizona. He explained that this had only been his second time in Arizona, so he was not familiar with his surroundings. He also mentioned that he had traveled to Arizona and killed another young woman that he had met in Michigan. Hymer said he might describe things about the other woman and mistakenly attribute them to Alissa. He estimated that he drove approximately 20 minutes before finding the interstate with a total drive time of 1 hour before finding a Comfort Inn motel on the way out of town. Hymer was specific about the motel name, noting that his mother worked for the company. He further defined out of town as a route headed towards Texas. Hymer said he checked into the motel, leaving Alissa in the car. The couple would stay in the motel for a total of 2 nights. Hymer said they stayed overnight Friday and again on Saturday before leaving town on Sunday morning. Hymer used his Georgia state driver's license to register at the motel, but volunteered that he often traveled with a fake Florida license in the name of Thomas Albert Bach. Hymer explained that he obtained the fake identification while in Tennessee. I asked Hymer questions about his stay at the motel, such as what he did for food. Hymer described leaving Alissa in the motel while he bought fast food. He had described the area around the motel as having other motels and restaurants nearby. Again, Hymer was unable to provide descriptions, names, or addresses. He did mention that on the first night he bought food at a chicken place, and on the second night, hamburgers. Hymer either could not or would not provide further detail. Hymer said that Alissa remained quiet and would not speak about her past other than saying she, quote, could not go back now, end quote. Hymer assumed Alissa was a runaway with an unhappy home life, or possibly embarrassed from what had happened with the biker guy. Hymer remained vague in describing Alissa, and minimized conversation between the two of them. Hymer said that Alissa went through 48 hours of withdrawal and was as close to overdosing as you can get. He described Alissa as having the shakes for 48 hours. Alissa was constantly vomiting or dry heaving, causing Hymer to place a trash can next to the bed. Hymer said Alissa was throwing up stomach liner and black liquid. He states that Alissa didn't eat much during the motel stay. When pressed for a better physical description, Hymer mentioned bruises on Alissa's wrist and again on the upper arm. He also mentioned 2 articles of jewelry, 1 necklace and 1 ring that was later given to female friends. Alissa had no other property on her person. He was unsure if Alissa had left clothing or identification in the van. Hymer mentioned that he bought clothing for Alissa from Walmart, which included 2 shirts, 2 shorts, and a bag of socks. He could not recall the location of the Walmart or how close it was to the motel. Hymer stated that Alissa's original clothing was thrown out because it was covered in vomit. Hymer noticed that Alissa was not wearing a bra or panties. No bra was purchased at Walmart, but Hymer did buy panties, which he described as, quote, bloomers that covered the whole ass, end quote. On Saturday night, Hymer said Alissa began talking a little bit. Hymer said Alissa told him, quote, I don't want to go back, not after what happened, end quote. Hymer assumed Alissa was from Phoenix, but she never assisted in directing him around the valley while driving, and never mentioned her home. I asked Hymer if Alissa spoke of friends, family, work, or school. Hymer again could not remember details, but believed Alissa, quote, wasn't in it, end quote, in reference to school. Hymer added that Alissa, quote, cried all the time, even cried in her sleep, end quote. On Sunday morning, Hymer said he and Alissa showered together, and that he noticed there was an infection at the injection site. Hymer said he helped Alissa clean her wounds. Alissa had no visible scars, marks, or tattoos that Hymer could recall. Hymer again qualified his memory, saying that it was several years ago and difficult to recall through all the haze of his own drug use. I expressed some displeasure at the lack of details in the description of Alissa. Hymer added that the motel room was kept dark and that he could not see her very well. Hymer was sure that he had stayed in the motel Friday night, Saturday night, and then left on Sunday morning. Hymer added that the couple was in Texas by midday Monday. Hymer specifically said that it was deep in Texas, mentioning Dallas, Orange County, on Monday. The phone call then begins discussing the sexual relations that Hymer had with Alissa. And like the letters, a lot is redacted. But essentially, Hymer says that he did not pressure Alissa into sex, stating, quote, I'm not a person who goes raping people. I could tell she had sex plenty of times, end quote. He said that after these sexual encounters, quote, I found the one I want to keep, end quote. Detective Anderson then hears the prison officials informing Hymer that he needs to end the phone call very soon and return to his cell. But Detective Anderson pushes on, and he asks Hymer to describe the murder of Alissa. That portion of the report reads, Hymer was specific in the location for Alissa's murder. Hymer gave the location as the Days Inn in Macon, Georgia. Hymer has a child with another woman. That woman's father is the maintenance man at the motel and was introduced to Alissa by Hymer himself. Hymer gave the reason for the murder as an argument over sex. Hymer said that Alissa was complaining that all of the cuts he had made on her had not healed and she was too sore for sex. And again, they go into more specifics about the sexual activity, and a lot of it is omitted. But essentially, Hymer says that the room was too dark to give accurate descriptions of what Alissa looked like. And the last part of this portion reads, that he strangled Alissa to death by placing his belt around her neck. Hymer was asked if Alissa fought to stay alive. Hymer said that Alissa, quote, bucked around, end quote, but was unable to get free. The next portion of the report goes into the disposal of Alissa's body. And that portion reads, Hymer said that after Alissa was dead, he drained the blood from her body into the bathtub. Hymer described cutting Alissa's neck at the jugular vein on both sides. He also cut the inner portion of both thighs and just above the stomach. Hymer noted that you must be careful not to puncture the stomach, as the contents will stink. He estimated that it took 5 hours for Alissa to completely bleed out. Hymer said he used a PVC saw which he kept in his truck to dismember Alissa's body. The head was removed from the torso and all 4 limbs were severed. Hymer said the body was bagged in 6 pieces, with the bags coming from his truck as well. The vehicle was owned by Country Fed Meats, a corporation which allowed Hymer to work out of his vehicle on air conditioning repair jobs. Hymer was now being told to end the conversation and return to his cell. He again advised that the letter would have all of the detail I needed, and also that I could verify his story by speaking to his younger brother Joshua, his friend John, and the unnamed grandfather of his child. Hymer advised that the necklace removed from Alissa was given to a woman a couple weeks after the murder. He estimated early June of 2001 as the time frame. The ring removed from Alissa was only described as a gold band with a stone. The ring was given a few weeks after the necklace was given. I asked Hymer if he would be willing to take a polygraph to help authenticate his testimony. Hymer agreed to take the test and admitted to having taken 3 polygraphs in the past. Hymer said that he passed 2 state polygraph tests in regards to stolen items and the murder which had placed him in prison. Passing the test meant that Hymer appeared believable. A 3rd test was administered by the FBI and was failed. Hymer said that during the 3rd test he got excited reliving the details of the murder and that the excitement caused him to fail the test. This 3rd test was conducted in reference to one of the other homicides, to which Hymer had confessed after being sentenced to life without parole. I ended the conversation with Hymer, thanking him for his time and advising him that I would be in touch. And that's where the report ends.
You know that thing where you get an amazing pair of shoes at a really great price and want to tell everyone about it? Yeah, so do we. Here at Designer Shoe Warehouse, we'll give you something to brag about. Like the latest styles from brands you love, or the trends everyone's obsessing over, or shoes that make you feel like, well, you. So go ahead, show off a little. Find shoes that get you at prices that get your budget. Head to your DSW store or DSW.com today. DSW, let us surprise you.
What they did to your family, you're lucky to make it out alive.
Streaming on Peacock.
These men are going to come after me. Taking them out is my only chance.
Put a bullet in her head.
From the co-creator of Ozark.
Looks like a family was running drugs.
Execution-style killing, it's rare for the Keys. And it leads on who they might have been running for.
The cartel killed my family. I'm gonna kill them. All of them.
MIA. Streaming now. Only on Peacock.
After going back and forth with Hymer on this confession over letters and this phone call, the Phoenix Police Department sent Detective Summershoe and a civilian polygrapher to speak with Thomas Hymer in person in Florida in April of 2009. Hymer ultimately failed the polygraph. After the test was completed, Summershoe entered the room to discuss the failed results. And it's concluded that Thomas Hymer had never seen an actual picture of Alissa, but only an age-progressed photo, which is essentially an illustrated photo that depicts what Alissa might look like years after her disappearance. And after seeing Alissa's real photo, he concluded that this was not the girl from Phoenix that he remembers killing. Hymer even apologizes for wasting their time. And in July of 2009, Detective Anderson interviewed some of Hymer's alleged witnesses. However, none of them were able to corroborate Hymer's story or recall even meeting Alissa. And none of the witnesses who Hymer claimed met Alissa were able to pick her out of a photo lineup either. So at this time, the confession was ultimately deemed false by the Phoenix Police Department, as it had been by the FBI, and no further action was taken. When the ABC 2020 special about Alissa aired later that year, this is what was concluded.
Detectives discover little, if any, information from Hymer can be corroborated. They decide it's time for a trip to that prison down in Florida.
I went down and I spoke to him. We took one of our polygraphers, one of our most experienced polygraphers.
Did you kill Alissa? Are you the person who killed Alissa?
We polygraphed him, and he failed the polygraph. I sat down with him, and I said, you know, I know this girl. You're going to have to convince me that you know this girl, because there's things that you'll be able to tell me. And he kind of got this look on his face like, oh, this isn't going to work.
I know this girl pretty well, and I know that you weren't with this girl. If you say it's not her, I mean, hey, I take your word for it. You've been around her more than I have.
That's when he started to change his story a little bit. He's like, well, I did pick up a girl in Phoenix, and I did kill her, but maybe it wasn't Alissa.
If I had to choose that picture, I wouldn't have picked her out. No, I wouldn't have picked her out. I wouldn't have said it was her. Okay, so where would you put your percentage down if you had to say it? Haven't looked at that other picture. That picture? Not her. That's not her. That's not the person. Okay. That picture there, I can't give 100% because that looks like somebody totally different.
I don't find his confession credible. I don't think there's any validity to it.
He's a very troubled man. We just don't believe he killed Alissa.
But after digging so deep into Alissa's case, This conclusion left me wanting more information, more clarification. I have so many questions. How did he know these specific details about Alissa? Does he have detailed stories like this for all of the other confessions he made? How could anyone possibly keep so many confessions straight in their head? So a few months ago, I reached out to Thomas Hymer myself. My letter was simple. I introduced myself, explained that I had read the documents pertaining to his confession, and wanted to reach out to him myself and hear his side of it all. And he wrote back. That letter reads, "Dear Sarah, I just received a letter from you today and wanted to answer you back right away. First of all, I need to ask you a couple of things, and they are as follows. 1. How do I know you are who you say you are? 2. Why wait 14 years to contact me? 3. Are you sure you want to open this can of worms? There are a lot of things that most people don't know, including you, I'm sure. 4. What is a podcast? Sorry, I've been locked up for a while. 5. How did you find me? Okay, sorry about all the questions, but I know Alissa went through a lot of things, and I wouldn't want to put her through more because of me. I would love to finally let someone know what all really happened. But who would listen to me after all that has happened and what I'm in prison for? I couldn't even get anyone to listen to me on my original charge of murder. But maybe I can at least give you and maybe your family some answers you've been seeking. So yes, Sarah Turney, I would be willing to talk to you about it. Just tell me or ask me what you want to know. As for talking on the phone, I would, but there is an issue. I could put your number on my phone list, but I do not have money on my account to make phone calls. So I'm sorry, but we will have to correspond by mail. I'll try to see what I can do, though. Maybe I can figure out a way to get some on there for a quick call. We will see. You said on or off the record. What do you mean by that, and what do you prefer? And the police reports you read about the whole situation? Well, I bet you didn't get much out of that, did you? Yeah, I do think we need to talk about it. Last question. What do you hope to gain from all of this? I don't want to let you down is why I'm asking. I do hope to shed some light on it, though. Anyway, I would like to hear back from you. If not, hey, it was nice to receive a letter, and I thank you for it. And I know a lot of people, probably yourself included, think the worst of me because I gave a false confession. But there was a reason behind me doing it, Sarah. Do you honestly believe I would just randomly pick Alissa's disappearance to fuel a murder confession? Maybe that's why you decided to write me. Maybe you actually believe there could be more to it. And there is. I'll close for now. Feel free to write me back and ask anything. I'll answer you immediately. Until then, take care, and I wish you all of the very best. Sincerely, Tom. When I got this letter, I was intrigued, I was scared, I was nervous, and I was excited. But I didn't want to go into specifics over letters. I feel like it would give him a lot of time to think it out and ensure that he got his story straight before sending me the next letter. So I took him up on his offer to talk over the phone for an official interview for the podcast. But then, COVID-19 happened, and our correspondence slowed down. At this point, I have 3 letters from him, all basically saying the same thing, that I don't know the whole story, that there is a reason he has this information, that the timing of the confession didn't happen by accident, and that he would love to tell me everything in an interview over the phone. But as it stands, I'm still waiting on that call. So unfortunately for now, I don't know what Hymer's current version of events is, or how he knew that information about Alissa. If I ever get that call, I will create a one-off episode to revisit the topic. But for now, like so many other things in this case, it's still unknown.
We gather here tonight to bring women back to their rightful place.
The Testaments, a new Hulu original series from the executive producers of The Handmaid's Tale.
It's easier to accept a story than believe that the people around you are monsters.
The battle isn't over.
There comes a time when you have to take action, when you have to choose your own destiny.
Never quite as it seems. Watch the new Hulu original series, The Testaments, streaming on Hulu and Hulu on Disney Plus for bundle subscribers. Terms apply.
At this point in the timeline, we're in the year 2009, and I know none of this. I don't know about my brother's interviews, I don't know about the duplicate truck, and I don't know about Hymer's confession in detail. So at this time, I had taken up advocating for my father full time. Like I mentioned previously, I acted as his legal secretary and even created a website for him, freemichaelturney.com. as well as a petition in an effort to get his sentence overturned. I was still living in his house, working full-time and going to school full-time. Just as I had slept in Alissa's bed after she was gone, I did the same thing when my father went to prison. I'd sleep in his bed and watch his favorite movies, and just cry, wondering why all of these terrible things had happened in my life. When he would call from prison, I tried to keep him up to date on his favorite TV shows and new movies, but quickly our conversations became less friendly, and really just about what he needed. But I figured he just had to be so sad and lonely in prison and really did need all of that help. I didn't realize that most of what I was doing for him would have almost no impact on his case, and he was more or less just using me to file motions and write letters as an extension of himself. Eventually, I let go of his house. The mortgage was high, the housing market was down, and my boyfriend's parents offered for us to take over their mortgage payments as they planned to move out. And my father agreed. He encouraged me to live in the house as long as possible before the bank took it back. So I did. And eventually I walked away from that house that held so many terrible and so many wonderful memories. But not too long after moving into my boyfriend's parents' house, we got a knock on the door. Despite never being late with my payment to his parents, the man at the door told us that the house was being auctioned off and that we had to move out. Upset and determined to make a safety net for myself, I saved all the money I could and became a homeowner in 2011 at the age of 22. Quickly after, I found out that I would be graduating from college at the top of my class the following spring. I was so proud. And I wanted my father to be proud of me too. After finding out my graduation status, I waited excitedly for my father's next call from prison. I couldn't wait to tell him. And eventually, he called. And I gave him the good news. But he wasn't excited. And he wasn't proud. Instead, he told me that he had been seeing visions of my dead mother, and that she was still upset that I didn't graduate from high school. Although this particular moment isn't related to Alissa's case, it made me question my father's love for his children, and especially his love for me. I couldn't understand how he could be so cruel. My entire life, I looked after him. I thought about all the days of school I missed to make sure that he was okay, all of the hours I spent typing his legal documents, and the thousands of dollars I sent him in prison. I had been taking care of my father my entire life. And when I shared the news of my proudest moment, about how I had overcome all of this and still created a life for myself, and what looked like to be such a bright future, he just didn't care. And this lack of empathy, this lack of love, made me question everything. What was I doing? Why was I helping him? Did he love any of us? Was that ABC 2020 special right about him? Could he be the monster from that show? It wasn't that exact day, but I remember turning to my boyfriend, that same boyfriend that moved in with me and my father so many years ago, And I asked him, "Do you think my father could have killed Alissa?" And he said, "Sarah, everyone thinks your father killed Alissa." Next time on Voices for Justice. I couldn't keep what I thought about my father to myself. I had to ask him. So I planned out what I was going to say and waited for his next call from prison. In 2013, while clearing out some boxes that sat on my back porch untouched for years, I found a map of my father's that wasn't taken by the police. The map contained handwritten notes, and certain locations were circled. My boyfriend Googled the longitude and latitude of these locations and found that they were in the middle of nowhere. At this point in the police reports, the title on each page changed from missing juvenile to missing person, likely homicide. So I get a ton of questions about Alissa's case. So I thought it would be helpful if I began answering a few of these questions in each episode. So if you have a question about Alissa's case, please submit an audio snippet of your question with your name and where you're from to sarah@voicesforjusticepodcast.com. And if your question gets chosen to be aired on the podcast, I'll send you a fun swag pack full of Justice for Alissa and Voices for Justice goodies. I love interacting with you guys, so please send me your questions. That being said, here's our first question.
Hi, Sarah. Jessica here in Phoenix, Arizona. So, first off, I am so proud of you. I obviously have been a follower of Alissa's story since it was on Crime Junkies and have, been rooting for you since day one of you starting this podcast. So I'm so excited to see all the traction that Alissa's case has gotten in the last couple years and how far you are taking this. So on that note, with how much traction it is getting, have you gotten any word from Michael Turney or, is he growing fearful at all? I feel like I've just kind of wondered that with how public you are about this story and about how much you've come out with everything that's happened in the case. So looking forward to hearing from you and looking forward to Justice for Alissa.
Hi, Jessica. Thank you for your question. So the last time I spoke with my father is that call you hear in the very first episode of this podcast. We do not keep in touch, so I have no idea if he's aware of the coverage or what he thinks about it.
Hey Sarah, this is Taylor from the Let's One About Murder podcast. You're a total badass, and I've been a huge fan of you and what you're doing for your sister for years. Here's my question. You were such a supporter of your father for a long time. What was the thing or the tipping point where you decided that he had something to do with Alissa's disappearance?
Hey Taylor, thank you for your question. I love getting the love from other podcasts. So yeah, I touched on it at the end of this episode a little bit, but it would be great to expand on it. It was not really everything all at once. It was really a culmination of so many things happening, of me realizing that my father just really didn't care about me or any of his kids and kind of looking at him in a different light. And I think at that point, then I was able to at least entertain the idea. And you'll see it more in the next episode, but as I approach him with my suspicions, his answers do not satisfy me, and in my mind, he looks more and more suspicious. But yeah, I think it was a tipping point of just really being able to listen to the fact that he could be an actual suspect and just being more open-minded about it, and then it kind of grew from there. Voices for Justice is hosted, produced, and edited by me, Sarah Turney. If you want to learn more about Alissa's story and how you can help with the case, visit justiceforalissa.com. And if you love the show, it would really help if you gave me a rating and review in your podcast player. Thank you so much, and I'll talk to you next time.